Joining me now to hopefully try and clear up some of this confusion is Republican Congressman from North Carolina and Chairman of the Freedom Caucus, Mark Meadows. Congressman Meadows, thank you so much for joining us.
It's great to be with you, Casey.
You have been in the center of all of this. Let's start with afternoon at the White House.
Sure.
You went down to talk to the president. What did you tell him?
Well, we had a conversation not just about immigration, but by the very nature of our conversation, it was really about what had happened actually 24 hours before what you just outlined. I can tell you this president was fully engaged. There were a number of things I wanted in this continuing resolution. The president called twice to ask that I stand down and said what we want to do is make sure that we keep the funding all about the funding of the government, not have other issues on the table, and we did. We obviously passed it in the House, moved it forward, but the deal
that's when he called you to try to say, okay, the House needs to get this done. Don't stand in the way.
That's correct. But the deal that even Senator Schumer's there talking about, he came out and did a press conference that said that we have still major disagreements right outside the White House. So it's his own words. You don't have to look at the president's words. Senator Schumer's there. You know, we've got very serious senators over there, but they're not making serious offers. And really what we're talking about right now is immigration, but that's not in the continuing resolution. This is about funding our government, has nothing to do with immigration, and yet we're going to hold our military men and women hostage so that we can get a deal that really the president has already outlined.
Where is the president in this?
The president's been very clear. No, the president's been very clear.
I'm very clear on what?
So let's clear it up,
okay.
Casey. All right. He has said that what he wants is border security.
Okay. And Schumer seems to have said, okay, you can have your wall.
No, according to Senator Schumer, it's a 7-year deal of $20 billion. And when you look at a 7-year deal, Senator Schumer can't even give that. You can't bind one Congress to the next on an appropriations that takes on an annual process.
So you're essentially saying Schumer was in there saying, okay, we'll pay for the wall, but over 7 years, so you may not even be an option.
A down payment on the wall is not the wall, but that's only 1/3 of what this president has asked for. He asked for an end to chain migration. He asked for an
family migration
into the diversity lottery in exchange for dealing with these individuals who have deferred status and making sure that they don't get deported. He has told me a number of times he wants a deal. He told me that as recent as the last 48 hours he wants a deal, and yet we somehow have a press event, and that's what I would call it with Senator Schumer, a press event. He knows how to get press. He comes out, calls the president a liar, when indeed that's not the factual basis of what actually took place.
What transpired behind the scenes? An administration official is telling NBC News tonight that Trump and Schumer's conversation on Friday was derailed by the White House Chief of Staff, John Kelly, and Stephen Miller, who share a hardline stance on immigration. Is that your understanding of what happened?
That's not my understanding. And anybody who would suggest that this president can be manipulated by his Chief of Staff or Stephen Miller doesn't know this president in a real way, because I can tell you.
Why do people come out of these meetings with two totally different accounts of what the president is saying?
Well, I can tell you Senator Schumer has an agenda. His agenda is to play to his base, which he thinks that this is a winning issue. Now, if we want to be factual, you've covered stuff here on Capitol Hill for a long time. Why didn't Senator Schumer, when they had the majority at Pennsylvania Avenue here in the Senate, a 60-vote majority, and in the House, why didn't they solve this? He wants it for.
Well, it wasn't a problem initially. The DACA.
Well,
the president
immigration has been a problem for decades.
Sure, but the Senate passed a comprehensive immigration bill, and it died in the House because.
So let me be clear. You're saying that President Obama made it an issue by giving deferred action. Is that your premise? I'm saying,
well, President Obama, by executive action, at that point, the Democrats did not have 60 votes in the Senate. Obviously, the president then revoked it. Now we're here. But all of the Republicans are saying you do want to fix that.
But we do, because President Obama made it an issue when he did the executive order. And actually, this president says, we're going to give you a period of time to debate it in Congress. That period of time ends on March the 5th. Will there be a debate in the Senate? Without a doubt. Will there be a debate on the House floor? Without a doubt. And so those normal timeframes are what this this president outlined. And yet to suggest that immigration has not been an issue as recent as a decade ago, you're not making that suggestion. I'm not making it. And so when we look at that, why didn't they solve a problem of illegal immigration, some of the issues that we're dealing with when they had control? Now what they want to do is use it as a political wedge and quite frankly, hold our government hostage.
So what do you say? The halls of this institution have been filled with these people. They have been quite politely, in many cases, walking up to members like you, members of the Senate, and saying, I'm afraid I'm going to be deported. How do you look at those kids?
So those viewers that are watching in, those and let's face it, they're 16 to 23 years of age now, and so they're not small kids, but they're maybe
they've
young
never
adult.
known another home.
But if they're watching tonight, there's two messages. One, this president wants to address it finally and quit kicking the can down the road. And the second is there's a deal out there to be made so that they don't have to fear any deportation. I can tell you that all the country that they only know, if they want a secure country, a secure border for the country that they've come to love,
but at the same time, Republicans are
refusing
refusing to talk about that so long as the government is closed. Is that still your position?
Well, that is. I mean, listen, you've brought in a new thing to the debate that had nothing to do with the debate in the House just the other night. As we look at that, I've talked to some of my Democrat colleagues. We were making very good progress, Kasie.
Democrats?
Yes, I've actually talked to Democrats. I mean, we're making news here tonight. Yeah. But
when was the last time you talked to President Trump?
Well, I've talked to him within the last 24 hours, certainly.
And where is the conversation right now?
Well, I think he's hoping for the best, but preparing for the worst.
Is he calling you with update or asking for updates?
Oh,
is he outlining where he stands?
I normally ask him. He doesn't ask me for updates, and so in doing that, I wanted him to know that we're serious if the government opens back up to really work in a way that maybe some that would suggest that I wouldn't be willing to negotiate on immigration will have a news flash. I'm willing to engage with the most liberal on this particular issue to find consensus. I wanted to make sure that he knew that because sometimes we put people in a particular box and we don't ever let them out, and I'm here to say tonight to those viewers that are here, we're willing to find a deal. Now, as long as the government is shut down, we're not going to do that.
And this deal that Chuck Schumer says he put on the table.
He didn't put a deal on the table, and I know enough about what went on that if you want to have Senator Schumer and me together, we'll come back and I'll make that offer.
Why don't you give us a little piece of information?
Well, I can tell you
what does he have
when
wrong?
you look at all the things that he talked about. He went outside the White House, said it was a good meeting, but a number of differences. Well, those number of differences are what I would say.
Give me one of them. What's the main difference?
I think what they're looking at on some of the funding that they're looking, some of the funding levels that they're talking about, it's a Democratic leftist wish list. I mean, and when
on domestic spending,
and so it was not just immigration related.
Okay.
And so when you look at those things, and I say that without divulging any of my personal conversation with the president, which you know I won't do.
Does the president think this is down?
He's hoping for the best. He is prepared for it to be a long time. I think he's talked to his staff about being prepared. So hope for the best, prepare for the worst, and yet at the same time, it's not the president's decision. It's Chuck Schumer's decision tonight while we're sitting here.
Or Mitch McConnell could say, I'm going to walk away without the president. I'm going to do what the Senate's going to do.
Well, let me just say this. That hasn't worked well for Mitch McConnell in the past. You have to have the House, the Senate, and the president sign off on anything. And I can tell you here today, we can fund the government and open it up in a few short hours if the Democrats in the Senate just say yes. And then what happens? You and I can go back to talking about the progress we're making on immigration reform, not just on where we are tonight with the government shutdown.
All right.
Now, as you roll your eyes,
I'm not rolling my eyes.
Let's go ahead and have that discussion.
We will see. All right, Congressman Mark Meadows, unfortunately, we have to leave it there. Thank you for the conversation tonight.